Hello, everyone. This is John Lee, your local real estate agent here in the Philadelphia area. I'm here with Gabby Sutter, and she does title. I think a lot of people get confused on what title companies are and what they do. And she's with Alpha. Is Abstract? Alpha.
Alpha Abstract Agency.
There you go, Alpha Abstract. So, yeah, Gabby, tell us, what do you do? Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, so John, I just want to first say thank you so much for having me on the podcast. Super excited. It's my first one. Happy to be here. So I'm the business development representative at Alpha Abstract Agency. Before stepping into business development, I was a title processor for about 2 years. So it's nice having a background where I truly understand title insurance and the process around clearing title and getting to closing. I mean, if you had asked me, what a deed was about 3 years ago, I had no idea. So it's awesome the valuable knowledge that I've experienced and gained here at Alpha Abstract. A little bit about myself outside of work. I am a big family person. I come from a really big family. So, being one of five in my immediate family and one of 38 grandchildren on just my mom's side, it's
Jeez.
been awesome growing up with such a big family. I mean, it's taught me a lot, and family at the end of the day is just everything for me. So, I really pride myself on that. Aside from that, I'm also a really big foodie. I love to cook, love to try out new recipes at home. And then something that a lot of people don't really know about me too is I love to golf. Um, I started golfing when COVID hit, just because it was like the only thing to do outside, and it was fun to be on the sun for like 4 hours, having a couple of beers, and then I realized I wasn't so bad, so I never looked back, and still play there. So that's a little bit about me there.
Oh wow, that's actually very interesting. I didn't know you had a big family. So where are
Oh
you
yeah.
in line as far as like siblings go? Like are
So
you
I am the middle child.
Oh nice.
So my parents actually had their first kid when my mom was 18
Uh-huh.
in high school. So my older
Uh-huh.
brother Matthew, we're about 14 years apart. And then I have a sister Ashley, who we're about 10 years apart. And then there's me, and then my younger sister Madeline. We're 13 months apart. And then Emma is our youngest, currently at Penn State. She's a junior. She just turned 21. So that's my immediate family there. I love it being a part of a big family. I hope I can do that for my family one day, way down the line. But
No, that's awesome. That's awesome. So kind of segue into the next question. Tell us about how you grew up from, how you upgrew from from your childhood to now.
yeah, absolutely. So I grew up in Broomall, Newtown Square area. So I'm definitely, a fellow Delco girl there. As I stated earlier, I am one of five children. So, growing up with my sister Madeline, who's only 13 months apart from me, she's my best friend and still is to this day. We basically do everything together. At a young age, we got really into sports. So the competition aspect of, life and sports in general was instilled in me in such a young age.
Right.
And growing up, it was weird. I always wanted to be a teacher for some reason, but then when I got into high school, I realized, I don't really want to do that. I want to pursue something in the finance sector. Once I had graduated from Archbishop Carroll High School, so during high school, I really enjoyed my time. I made some long-lasting friends and amazing memories throughout those 4 years. And then graduating from high school, I went to Westchester University. And it's a funny story because ultimately I went to Westchester because it was the least expensive option. I originally had these super big dreams to go down south to a big football school, and I thought it would be a great time, right? And my uncle, who helped me with a lot of my finances when figuring out, what college I'm going to go to and all that stuff factored in there, he had created this Excel spreadsheet for me that listed the different costs of tuition, room and board, and meal
Right.
plans, and all that good stuff that comes along with it. And
Right.
he's like, Gab, take a look at this and let me know your decision. I saw it and my jaw literally dropped, right? I asked myself, okay, do I want to be in $35,000 worth of debt or over $100,000 worth of debt? So for me, that was a super easy decision. I was like, okay, I'm going to Westchester. And honestly, one of the best decisions I ever could have made. Westchester was kind of like a home away from a home. It wasn't too far away from my hometown, being like Broomall, Newtown Square area. So I could
But
go
just far
home.
enough, right?
Yeah, just far enough, right? But I was as far as I wanted to be
Yeah.
away from home. So like
Yeah.
if I didn't want to go home for a month, I'm like sayonara, but I had the option to go home, which was great. And then throughout my college years, I always had a job. And sophomore years, when I actually had gotten into serving and ultimately it led to bartending, So I was always working throughout college. I wasn't your typical like party hard girl, like benders every weekend and whatnot. So I really took school seriously and wanted to do well to secure a great internship and ultimately, get a good full-time job. I knew at the end of the day that I was the only one that could make this a reality for myself. So I really honed in on that. And I would say, aside from that, I really enjoyed making money when I was serving and bartending. It was the first time in my life where I, was making decent cash. So it opened my eyes and made me realize like money makes the world go round. So getting a degree in finance is really where I ended up because I knew it was going to open up a bunch of different opportunities for me. And, that's exactly what I did here. And here I am now in real estate.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Like if you ever hear stories of Mark Cuban, he always talks about how like if you're trying to learn a skill and you need to make money while learning the skill, like bartending is always one of the best things to do,
Oh,
especially
yeah,
for making like, income or at least enough income for you to
absolutely.
survive.
Of course.
Yeah, no, that's really encouraging. I didn't even know that about you. That's actually really interesting.
Yeah,
So
it's
how
always a
how
little
do you
something
go
funny.
how do you go from being a Delco girl to, going to Westchester, right? And then from
Love
Westchester
it.
you go to bartending and now title.
Yeah. So, Westchester hosts these job fairs where essentially it's like for sophomores, juniors, and seniors too to come and visit this job fair where you have like maybe like 50 to 70 different companies, right? And you bring your resume, you look all nice, and you're just trying to, I guess, network with people to figure out, okay, where would I want an internship? And I had landed at this one booth for Northwestern Mutual. And I just really enjoyed the philosophy for
Oh, that's the
Northwestern
financial
Mutual.
advising then you're getting into.
Yep, financial advising.
Yeah.
So I really enjoyed that. And I went in for an interview and I was like, okay, this is going to be extremely challenging, but I'm like, let's do it. I need an internship. It was right in the town of Westchester. So it was the Westchester branch. I walked to the internship every day and also just gained valuable knowledge. All the people there just like wanted to hustle. They were all up at like 5 a.m. I was like, all right, this is a cool environment to be in. So I had interned there for about 2 years and then it was really tough. Like you're supposed to lean on your family and friends for a lot of this stuff. And my family was like, Gab, you're 21 years old. We're not going to give you our money to be our financial advisor. Like we already have life insurance squared away. So I was like, okay. So after being there for about 2 years, I was like, all right, this is probably isn't for me. Selling life insurance isn't super sexy. So
Yeah.
I had went to tell my boss that I was leaving, and one of the top reps in the branch reached out and was like, hey, like I understand like you want to step away from the financial planning, but would you want to be like my right hand person? Would you want to be my associate? And like we go in on this together. And I was like, you know what? I was like, that sounds pretty cool. Like I've been here for a while. I understand the philosophy. I understand, life insurance, disability insurance, investments as well. So I took on that full-time role. I had started, I guess, halfway through my senior year. I had started part-time. And then once I graduated that spring semester of 2020, I kicked on full-time. And then, of course, COVID hit. So I was working from home and whatnot. But being the right hand person to a financial advisor, I was open to a whole different, source of connections.
Mhm.
And being there for almost 2 years, I had a bunch of connections in the real estate industry. And I just still felt the same way as when I was leaving the internship. I was like, I still don't love this. Like, I don't have that much of a passion for it. Like, just the way that referrals were given in the life insurance industry, I just didn't love it. So I had reached out to these different connections I had made throughout my years at Northwestern, and it had led me to a vice president at an underwriter, being Fidelity National Title Insurance. And she connected me with a bunch of different title companies. And I was like, okay, like I don't really know what title is. Like I'm just kind of like dipping my toes in the water. And I had interviewed with a couple companies and I landed with Alpha Abstract because it was a smaller company. I was
Right.
their first employee that they hired. So I figured this is a great opportunity. As long as they're growing, I'm also growing. And, I'm kind of like the top employee there, given that I was their first hire. So everything I learned, I'm going to have to teach everyone else. So it seemed like more of a leadership standpoint too. So I really loved it. And that's how I landed in the real estate industry, just through different connections and then interviewing with companies and title. And I mean, a lot of people don't realize it, but title is like really the backbone of a real estate transaction. I think title gets a bad rep just from bad experiences and whatnot. But, we do make the title transactions get to closing. So, I mean, I've loved it ever since. And the real estate industry opens up a plethora of different opportunities, whether that be, investing for yourself or helping investors. I mean, there's development side of things. It's just truly, a wholesome industry where there's so many different avenues to go down.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And I can definitely resonate with what you're saying as far as working in the field of insurance slash financial advising. So even for me, and I tell this story quite often, like
Okay.
my first career out of college was working for MetLife, which is
Oh, no way.
yeah, yeah. So
Yeah,
I was
just like
selling insurance for
Northwestern.
2 years, doing the same thing you were doing, and I might have even broken a couple of relationships with some of my friends because I would
Hey, please get some life insurance.
yeah. So it was a tough phase for me. Like
Yeah,
I don't know if you were there at the seminar. Like I even showed people my pay stub or my
yeah.
taxes. I made $18,000 my first year,
It's
and
it's a
it was really
tough
tough.
gig.
Yeah, it's
It
a really
really
tough
is.
gig.
And it's not really like talked about up front,
Yeah,
until you are in the weeds. And it's like, oh boy. And like, if you don't have a strong company to back you to really help you get to that next level, it's tough. And I mean,
yeah,
I've seen a ton of people, even in the internship, burn bridges with people because like they're either too pushy or, like you constantly kept going back to the one person and it was just rubbing them the wrong way. So, I mean, it's definitely a challenging industry to be in.
for
But I
sure.
mean, it shows you have grit if you're able to do it, though. So pride yourself on that, John.
Yeah, no, no, I appreciate that. No, I mean, I was just saying, like, I really feel for you because that's a
No,
tough
it's
industry. I'm sure you learned a lot because, like,
oh yeah.
when I was working there, I was actually mentored by three MDRTs, like million dollar
Okay.
tables, and they taught me a lot because for me, like, culturally, uh, I'm still an introverted person. People don't know that.
Really, you
Yeah,
don't give off that vibe.
no, I'm a very, very, very introverted person, but I value this is how much I value these kinds of conversations and
Right.
meeting people and getting to know people. And that's what my
Really.
career as a financial advisor has really taught me.
Hmm.
And same for you. Like I
Right.
can definitely see you building those relationships early to kind of be in the position there you know where you are now.
Right. No, I completely agree. I mean, I'm happy that you also can understand from a level of that we were both in that industry. And, even though certain things didn't pan out, it kind of all still leads at the end of the day to just building connections and building relationships with people. And I mean, at the end of the day, if you're able to do that, I think it's really going to set you aside from a lot of other people as well. So even still being an introvert, I mean, I would have never known that about you just from our conversation. So, I mean, you don't give off that vibe, should I say?
Yeah, yeah, most people don't. But yeah, to get into the next question
Yeah.
for our listeners, how did we meet? How did you and I meet?
Yes. Okay. So how did we meet? We met at a convention in King of Prussia. It was the Real Estate Investors Convention. It was kind of like my first networking event where we actually had a booth there at Alpha Abstract. And I was just looking through just the schedule for the day. And I saw your presentation listed as house hacking. And I was like, okay. I read a book on this. Like, I'm interested. I'm like, let's go check it out. So I went in, I'm standing in the back corner, and the first thing that really caught my attention was you just kind of explained that, you didn't come from like a crazy amount of wealth. You had scored less than 1,000 points on your SAT scores. And I was like, this guy is awesome because like I can also like understand that aspect. Like I wasn't top notch in my class, but you just kind of started off the presentation stating like, hey, like you don't have to be the best of the best in order to get started in real estate. And I think a lot of people need to hear that reinforcement because it truly can be for everyone as long as you're willing to work hard and succeed and put your mind to something. So that's really how we met. And then, or I guess how I met you, should I say, through that presentation.
Yeah,
And then
yeah,
you had came into the booth room where just all the different vendors are. And we had just started talking in conversation. And after that event, I had reached out to get a one-on-one to learn a little bit more about you and your business. And that's really how we met there.
yeah. No, and I appreciate that, and thank you for that. Kudos to you as well. I mean, I learned so much that day, just kind of like as far as presenting, but
Yeah.
I really appreciated you going out your way to really get to know me and how you can serve me in my business. And what people don't know is that you were asking a lot of questions about how you can help. And
Yeah.
obviously, I'll kind of segue of why and what makes you and your title company different. But going along the topics of title and title insurance, right?
Yes.
So, what is title insurance and why is it important for homeowners and real estate investors?
Yeah. So what is title insurance, right? I mean, that is the question that I get asked all the time just because people don't know what it is, right?
Yeah.
So by definition, essentially, title insurance is an official document that dictates ownership over an asset in question. And for title, it's property. So title insurance protects you as the homeowner and your lender if another party comes forwarding a claim to have rights to your property. So title is really important for, home buyers and real estate investors and developers because it protects the owner from mistakes in legal documents that could be, deed fraud or any liens, unpaid taxes, and really anything along the lines of prior owner debt. I mean, it protects the rights and the interests of a property, and also the transfer of ownership. You got to make sure that's properly completed. So that way, when the new owner receives protection from future claims in the property, it's the most effective way to protect the ownership and the rights to the property. Title is also required to purchase if you're getting, mortgage or financing in order to secure a property. Your lender is writing you, a big loan to purchase this property. So now they have a heavy vested interest in your property since that mortgage will take first lien position. So of course they want to make sure that they're protected with that loan. It might be a couple $1,000s, could be less, could be more, but either way they want to be protected. So title will always be required when you're financing a loan, which is something that a lot of people don't understand. So I just always like to make a point to reference that. And if you're not financing a property and you're purchasing in cash, it's still highly recommended to obtain title insurance. That way your property has protection. And it's funny because I get a lot of people and they're like, okay, like they'll call me after we close a property and they're like, hey, like I have a water leak. Like I need like to put a claim for my title insurance. And I'm like, oh, you're talking to the wrong company. They don't even understand. It's like title insurance protects and insures the land, right? So the legal description being the mets and bounds of the property and any prior owner debt that comes along with that, including, like I said, deed fraud, things of that nature. So we don't actually insure the home, we insure the land. So that's a little snippet of what
Yeah.
title insurance
So
is.
so for our listeners, because you're very sophisticated in the way that you just explained that. So in simple terms, can you give us some examples of, so you mentioned deed, right? Like you want to
Yep,
make sure that the person who says that they're selling their house actually owns it, right? So
absolutely.
could you just give us like an example like that or some other common
Yeah.
things that you might find in title?
So an example of deed fraud, which is actually something that we personally experienced here, being a title company, people will call all the time, hey, like, can you notarize this for me? Can you notarize a deed for me? And it's like, yeah, we could do that for a fee. And this one guy had come in and he was claiming that he had, ownership to this property. And on the, you can like look all, you can get a current deed to see who the current owner is and things of that nature. But it said like XYZ senior, and the son, who is the junior,
Oof.
actually did not own the
Oh
property,
man.
came in trying to sell it for a quick buck to somebody else. And because obviously you have to do your due diligence, right? We did a little bit of research. We also require that you bring in a valid license for us to make sure that, this is the correct person in front of me. I mean, that's what a notary is there to do. And we had caught that then, like, okay, well, the property is held in your dad's name and you're the son, so you actually don't have a direct claim. And then you start getting into, oh, my dad passed away, it's an estate. And I'm like, that's great, but we need additional documentation to reinforce that. So
Right.
I mean,
Right.
if we weren't able to catch that, that would have been just deed fraud right there. So that's why it's really important to do your due diligence and homework when people come in asking for different deed signings and whatnot. But that's a perfect example of deed fraud. Somebody
Mhm.
pretending they have ownership to a property. They do not. Sell it really quick in cash for a quick buck, and that's it, right? Now the new owner has to deal with all that stuff, and it's really sad. I mean, there's a lot of scams out there, but you just have to ultimately do your homework and partner with a trusted title company that's going to do that stuff for you.
Right. And going back and really just helping our listeners understand the difference between title insurance and homeowners insurance, right?
Yes.
So with homeowners insurance, everyone, let's think of like State Farm, Geico.
Yes.
If you need to file a claim because there was something that happened to your home, that's homeowners insurance.
Yep.
Title insurance is to make sure that all the legal work of the land is properly secure before you buy or sell a house.
Exactly. That's exactly right. Again,
Okay.
title insurance insures the land, right? The actual land. And then you build a home, and
Yep.
homeowners insurance covers the home.
Exactly. Okay. Yeah, and I just want to make sure that it's a simple thing for our listeners to
Yeah.
understand. So, um, yeah, next question. So, who has been your professional mentor? I know that you've been through, multiple careers, so you can mention
Yes.
anyone that you can think of and let me know who they are.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I would say I have, a bunch of different professional mentors. I mean, I would say the biggest one that stands out to me would be my Aunt Katie, who is my mom's sister, younger sister there. She is such a badass. Like, she has done tremendous throughout her career. She was a CPA for a while and then also teaches accounting classes at Catholic University. And now she works for a consulting firm to help businesses with their needs and whatnot, and also still auditing on the side. But she is someone that has been dealt a hand for sure and was still able to overcome all of that, prioritize her work life, her family life. And she's just someone that, like, if I'm having a bad day, right, I'll call her and she'll just pick me right up like, hey, today might not be a good day, but tomorrow is proven to be better if you keep your head up and keep moving forward. So she's definitely been someone I've leaned on. I mean, I remember back in college, freshman year, I was taking a physics class and I was like, all right, I'm going to fail this class. Like, I have no idea what I'm doing. I had bombed the first exam. The second one was coming up. And she was like, Gab, stick to it. Go to your professor, let him know what's going on, see what he can do. That's exactly what I did. And he told me if I came to office hours before every single class, he would not fail me. So there's just like little things like that that she had really helped me with throughout life. And I would say when I got into the title industry, a who's like a title master is Danielle, who's our processor at Alpha Abstract. It was really nice, and we brought her on the team because she's been in the industry for like 15 plus years. So when I had a title question, instead of constantly bugging my bosses, right, I was like, Danielle, please help me. So she's the one that has taught me a lot in the industry and someone I still heavily lean on when I have questions that come
Yeah.
up, because truly, every day is a different experience and a different learning experience. And then aside from that, my bosses, Ryder and Dakota, I mean, they have truly held my hand throughout this entire process and gave me the opportunity to take on business development once I realized I didn't want to be chained to my desk clearing judgments every day. So the fact that they trusted me to take on the role and gave me the opportunity, I mean, they have just been great mentors to also lean on for different help and advice and whatnot as I navigate through the real estate industry.
Yeah. And I love the fact that you mentioned a family member as
Yeah.
as the first person that came to your mind. And for me, you know, I would always have to say my brother, my oldest brother. He is what, 5, 6 years older than me, five, six
Okay.
years older than me. And he was always like to me, like my dad, right? Only
Right.
because you know, my parents were never around like physically because they were always working. So they were always
Okay.
working like a minimum 12 hours every single day. So
Wow.
for my brother, he was the person that taught me how to play baseball. He was the person that taught me how to ride a bike.
Awesome.
You know what I mean? So there are a lot
Absolutely.
of those are all unforgettable moments that I even still cherish and I have in my heart today. So
Of course. I mean, and
I'm
they're
sure there's a lot of meaning to you in that regard too.
so much meaning. And I mean, those are the moments that like you'll never forget and you'll
Yeah.
take those moments to the grave. And it's like I'm so thankful to have siblings, like and like aunts that really like take a vested interest in you. So I
Yeah.
love that you were able to also, have a mentor like your older brother, a family
Yeah.
member there.
Yeah, that's awesome. And going back to your work, right?
Yeah.
Can you share any examples of particularly challenging or interesting transactions that you've worked in on the past? And how were you
Yeah.
able to overcome any obstacles that arose? I know you mentioned that example with title, and if you gave that example already, I do apologize, but if you have another example, that would be great.
No, yeah. I mean, let me be honest, there are crazy
Yeah,
transactions
I
that
know.
happen all the
Yeah,
time. So
yeah.
I have a bunch of different stories. I'll share one about an estate. So when I was newer to title processing, we received an order that had an estate selling the property, right? And I don't know, John, have you dealt with in the past representing an estate selling a property?
I have not, and I can imagine, depending on who's in the estate, that can obviously be nasty, depending on
Of course.
yeah, who's in it.
I mean, unfortunately, it's really sad. I've seen a lot, even in the financial planning industry and real estate, that people's death can really like make or break a family. It's
Of
really
course.
sad when money gets involved and in the way. But essentially, when you're selling a property with an estate, there's a lot of moving parts. So you have to raise an estate and go through probate. And then the Register of Wills will then grant either a letters testamentary or letters of administration showing who has the authority to act on behalf of the estate. So I didn't know this process too well, and it made it very challenging for me. However, I do enjoy challenges simply because like this was just another learning experience for me, and
Yeah.
it was guaranteed that I would have another file just like this one, obviously a little different, but in a state selling a property. So at closing, of course, we have to collect for inheritance tax as well, because more times than not, that's not paid prior to um, selling the property where the estate owned the property because that heir had passed away. But ultimately, I was able to lean on the different resources and especially my underwriters. That way I was able to educate my clients on, how inheritance tax is calculated and why we need to escrow for that at closing and what are the steps taken on your end afterwards in order to then get that escrow back, because it's a pretty high escrow. You're selling a property and you have about $15,000 in escrow. It's like,
Oh
okay,
man.
what do I need to do in order to get that money back?
Yeah.
But I would say my biggest takeaway from this file was that there's a way to avoid an estate sale essentially, and to raising probate and paying and getting around like paying inheritance tax. So a little tip for, I guess, the listeners out there: if you can, or of an attorney you can speak to about this, put your properties in a trust, right? It might not have to be right now, but down the line, if okay, I'm gonna, eventually someone's gonna inherit my property, let's put it in a trust. It's worth paying the transfer tax on that because it will avoid your heirs a lot of headache down the line. That's something that a lot of people don't know, and something that, I found out earlier in my career, but I just like to share that piece of information with people.
So if it goes to an estate, can you explain to our listeners exactly what that is and how it goes in the line of order? So even for
Yeah.
me, like um I had a situation, it didn't happen to me, but I know that a friend of mine asked about it. Like his mom passed away
Yeah.
and he wanted to know kind of like, or no, not his mom, his grandmom. It was his grandmom that passed away and he wanted to know the order of like how everything would work as far as percentages go. I
Yeah.
mean, I don't know the details of that, but I figured I ask.
Yeah, so I will do my best to articulate it because it's a complex topic.
Yeah, yeah.
So essentially raising probate. So when somebody passes away, right? Like let's say like your mom passes away and now she has an estate, right? So she may have had a will or she may have not had a will, and that kind of determines what letters are granted from the Register of Wills. But let's say, for this sake, there was a will. So the will then would state, who has the right to, X amount of money, X amount of property, things of that. But essentially, when you raise probate, you let the Register of Wills know, like, hey, here's the death cert. This person passed away, and we're hoping to sell the home and whatnot. And then they will issue either letters testamentary or what is it? I said it earlier. I don't know why I'm blanking right now. Letters testamentary or letters of administration. And letters of administration is when there is no will. Letters testamentary is when there is a will. So then it almost follows like two different guidelines. So let's say there was a will, letters of testamentary, and let's say, the son was now named the executor of the estate. And there's a bunch of different legal language, like executor is for men or like males, and executrix is for females. So you have to be careful of the verbiage as well because they'll have to sign that way on the deed.
Right.
So it's just good to kind of double check that to make sure that's correct as well. And then once you go through that process, then you can still sell the home without filing inheritance tax, but the calculation for inheritance tax can be kind of
Tough.
significant. So it's a 0% transfer for a surviving spouse to a parent to a child. So it's 0% from surviving spouse to another spouse, right? There's no transfer tax. And then it's 4.5% on transfers from direct descendants and lineal heirs. And then it's 12% transfers to siblings, which is pretty high. And then 15% taxed when you're transferring to, another individual. So like maybe let's say the person didn't have a will and an attorney is now raising the estate. That's going to be 15% inheritance tax. And if you want, I can kind of walk through the calculation. I don't know if that would like help or
Oh no,
I
I
don't
think
know.
that's I mean, just for basics, yeah, I think I that's fine. Yeah.
You
But
want me to go through it?
uh
Is that what
if
you're
you
saying or
want, I
no?
mean, if you want, yeah, yeah, if you want.
I mean, really quick. So you just take the assessed value at the time of death, and
Okay.
then you have to times that by the common level ratio. And in Philadelphia, I think that's 1.08, or it may have just went down to 1.07. I'm not 100% sure there.
Okay.
And then you would times that by the percentage, right? So if you're passing it down to, a sibling, that's going to be 12.5%. So you take the assessed value times the common level ratio times that percentage is essentially how you get what the inheritance tax would be. And if you don't file that prior to closing, escrow and the title company is also going to have to hold 1.5 times that for escrow purposes as well. So then once you're able to file the inheritance tax return, that's when you're able to get that escrow back.
Jeez.
So
Okay.
it's a really expensive process. So again, if
Yeah.
you can do a
And,
trust, go
and
for
that
it.
and that's not including to pay for the attorneys themselves, right? That are divvying up
Nope.
the yeah, divvying up the funds.
Yeah, so it's
Yeah.
definitely it's a hard process to go through, and it's also hard to articulate. As you've
Right.
heard, I was stuttering a little there, but
No, yeah, no, no. I'm not gonna lie to you. I probably only understood like 30% of what you just said.
sorry about that. If I could articulate it better, I
Even for me,
would.
I was like, it went over my head. But I mean, from simple math, like what are we looking at? Like if it goes to an estate, like are we looking at like half of that being gone, like pay to taxes and also to attorneys or more?
I would say probably less, definitely less. I mean, again, it
Okay,
all depends on who we're transferring the property to. So, obviously the percentages could get higher, but
right,
I mean, I think the highest inheritance tax escrow I've seen was about like 26,000. So depending on obviously all the other stuff along with closing costs and whatnot, I mean, you still can make out pretty well, and you can still get some of that money back just because we hold 1.5 times. But I would say factor in anywhere between like 10,000 to like 30,000.
right, right. Okay, yeah, and going on the topic of title,
Yeah.
so and kind of your opinions with what you're seeing and hearing and believing with the real estate trends, right? So what are
Yeah.
some of the most important trends or changes that you're seeing in real estate industry right now, and how
Yeah.
is title adapting to meet those new demands?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's a great question. And I think a lot of other people have, maybe different opinions, but a big change that, I think everyone is talking about and that we've discussed, in our meeting not too long ago was current interest rates, right? I mean, they're obviously really high. It's
Right,
scary for renters to purchase their first home. It may be delaying downsizers because the interest rate that they're going to be getting will be significantly higher. Maybe people who wanted to sell don't want to sell anymore given the interest rates. So, I mean, I would say there's a lot of uncertainty in the market, which is really pushing people away and they're kind of staying on the sidelines.
right,
I mean, if we look back to 2020 to the middle of 2022, like deals were falling from the sky. Everyone was buying and selling. The market was absolutely insane. People were buying properties with no inspections and contingencies. It was insane.
Mhm.
And I would say with the industry being extremely busy, right, we were just closing transactions left and right. And then I would say taking a turn the past few months, the industry as a whole really slowed down across, a lot of different industries aside from just real estate. I mean, but specifically in the real estate industry, there's a lot of title companies that either have already closed down or are laying off staff and furloughing employees. So it's kind of an untelling time right now. I'm hoping the market comes back sooner than later, but I think there's going to be a little bit worse before there's a little bit better stuff happening. But something at Alpha Abstract that we've adapted to as to what's been on in the market is we're kind of looking at it from a shifted focus point of view as we're taking it as an opportunity. So when I had taken on business development, and what I mean by that, excuse me, is that, obviously I'm hoping to bring in lifelong clients to Alpha Abstract and truly build relationships and help agents and lenders and investors, be better than they were yesterday by trying to educate them on certain topics and coming from a point of contribution. People really didn't care who they worked with back in 2020 and when the market was so hot. But now the market's slow. So what's your title company doing for you that in the fact that you're not bringing in a crazy amount of deals on a monthly basis? I can assume probably not much, which then makes it a very transactional relationship. And this is where we've adapted and changed our processes to learn how to help our partners grow. So we have invested in a lot of different platforms and different marketing efforts in order to help our clients, be the best that they can be. So that's really how we shifted our focus, when the market went crazy downturn. So I do think that, obviously we're going through the weeds, and a lot of people who aren't super serious about, working in the industry or doing the best of the best that they can, because when they started 2 years ago, it was like, you were getting deals left and right. So I do think it's going to weed out a lot of people in the industry that are not looking to really work and hustle, which again, I think does open up opportunity now to start building those strong relationships with people and providing as much value as you can, whether that be specifically tailored to what their business needs are. And that's really the approach that we take here at Alpha. And I've seen a significant change, which has been great because people want the help. When people started back in 2020, they didn't have to learn all the hard stuff, and now the market has significantly changed. So it's kind of like back to the basics, and you might need that accountability partner to help you get through that.
Yeah, no, that's awesome because one of the things that I really appreciated about you and what your company has done, even for me as a real estate agent, is I think I texted you like a Friday or Saturday, and I was like, "Hey, I'm gonna need some information on these two lots because
Yes.
there was a property that I had a client he bought. It was in between two vacant lots, and he was actually curious on potentially buying one or the other two lots
Right.
for yard space. And that's not information that most realtors have offhand, but you were able to provide that for me. And not just the information, but the contact information, which was really important. And I think you guys just don't do, the talk to talk. You guys are doing the walk to walk to really service
Absolutely.
not only clients, but also real estate agents, which was really, really impactful.
No, yeah. And I want to thank you for sharing that because I mean, that's a big part of what I do here at Alpha, business development. I want to help the agents grow. And if that's obtaining information on properties and contact information
Right.
for you to reach out, more than happy to do that. And I think it's a big value proposition that we do at Alpha Abstract. And I think that's a big part of the reason why we've been standing out compared to some of these other title companies recently.
Yeah. So to help our clients, since now they understand, right,
Yeah,
what title is, what are
hopefully.
some best practices for choosing a title company, and what should home buyers and sellers look for when evaluating their options?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, so we have people all the time calling Alpha, shopping around different rates and whatnot. And what a lot of people don't realize is the title premium rates are standardized in Pennsylvania. And, what does that mean? It means that title premiums or the cost of title, your title insurance policy, will be the same price at every different title company you shop around out. It's a fixed standardized rate that the state sets, the Department of Insurance.
So let's
Um,
stop there. So it doesn't matter whether you go to Bob's title, Susie's title, or Alpha.
Correct. The premium will always be the same,
Okay.
and so will, of course, it's fixed to the sale price and also the loan amount that you're getting, but it will be the same regardless, right? So I tell people that on the phone too. I'm like, hey, you can shop around, but I'm just going to tell you now that it's a standardized rate. The only thing that will differ is what that title insurance company will, charge. I see people a lot of times, like I'm sure you have like a broker fee that you have to add on, like things like that. But there might be like closing costs, like if there's a remote settlement, or maybe some title companies do just a settlement fee in general. There's going to be a notary fee involved, an e-recording fee involved, maybe a courier fee involved because we have to get your loan documents back to your lender. So that's one thing to note when shopping around, right? I mean, really, it's just you want to pick a title company that you can trust. And a lot of times I know they lean on the agents to direct them in the right way. So being an agent, I think it's just finding a title company that's willing to get you the best bang for the buck, essentially, and also one that is going to do the job right. I would say the biggest thing for first-time home buyers and sellers and anyone else purchasing property to really focus on is when you are either sending a wire or receiving a wire from the title company. All I have to say is you need to call that title company and make sure you have the correct wiring instructions in hand. Because back to deed fraud, there's scammers out there. There are people that work day in and day out to try and scam people. And I would say title companies are easier targets because we're a very transactional agency, right? We're a transactional industry. I mean, there's money going in and out of an escrow account on a daily basis, depending on what your closing schedule looks like, of course, and the different things going
Right.
on. But biggest thing is if you receive wiring instructions from the title company, call that title company and definitely, confirm those with the company just to make sure that you're sending your money to the right place. We've seen some crazy horror stories happen in the past. So that's
Right.
just one thing significant to note to other people. And as an agent, to also educate your clients on that as well.
Okay. And our last two questions.
Yeah.
So since you guys are growing, you guys are getting bigger, right? Alpha's getting bigger.
Yes.
What are you guys looking to, make your job easier? I
Yeah.
mean, I know a common answer would be like, making more money or, taking a big
Yeah.
vacation or something. But if you could fill a specific role, make a purchase or an acquisition, what is the one thing you would need help with?
Hmm. That is a good question. One thing that I would need help with. Hmm. I would say, I guess, as we're continuing to grow, something that, will need to be done is bringing on excess processors. So that way, the workload doesn't get immensely difficult to manage. So I would say, down the road, that is something that we'll definitely have to invest in. But I would say for me personally, which would be amazing, which I know won't happen right now, I have to prove myself here, but I would love an ISA, right? An inside sales associate that makes those cold calls for me to start those relationships into a warmer meeting and whatnot. Just because for me, the cold calls are the worst part of my day, but it's something I have to do. It's something that I remove the emotion from, but that would make my life a lot easier. But again, that's down the road. I have to do it for myself and fight for myself until, I don't have the time to manage that.
Yeah. Well, you're doing great. You're doing great. And
Well, thank
obviously,
you.
impressions are always great. And I feel like you always make a good impression. So
Thank you,
lastly,
John.
where can our listeners find you?
Yes, listeners, listen up. You can find me obviously through our website. I am also on LinkedIn, and then I also am on Instagram. So my Instagram handle is Closings with Gabrielle because I personally love doing the closings for my clients that I bring into Alpha. So that is something that I love to pride myself on. Coming from processing, love doing the closings and just seeing everybody, full circle at the end of the closing. So that is where you can find me. And of course, obviously give me a call. My number's blasted everywhere and whatnot.
All right. Well, Gab, thank you so much. And looking forward to hearing from you as well as our guests.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, John. It was a pleasure being on my first podcast. I hope it was good
Yeah,
to
you
all of
killed
our
it.
listeners out there.
You killed it. All right, Gab. Take
Awesome.
care.
All right. Thank you so much. We'll definitely be in touch, John.
All right. Bye.
All right. Bye.